The hand we're going to show you today is between two elite players in Australia playing a very high-stakes, no-limit cash game, Jason Mercier and Sam Trickett. These guys have so many levels they're working with in the game against each other that things get a little bit weird.
Absolutely. This is a deep hand, too. Deep in terms of how you might think about it, but also deep just in terms of how deep their stacks are. They both have over $250,000, over 250 blinds. That's not going to really come into play. That's how deep they ultimately are.
The video gets it a bit wrong with the pot size, so we're going to show you that through titles throughout, and we're going to make little jokes about it later, so you're going to remember. This hand was suggested to us by Peter O'Neill on Twitter. If you have a suggestion for the breakdown, tweet it at us and include a YouTube link.
Also, this hand was voted on by our patrons on Patreon. If you want to know more about that, click right up there.
We're going to break this hand down as we go, so get ready for some analysis.
It's a 2-minute walk from your room. I'll ask.
Sam Trickett on the button with Queen 8 in hearts. Mercier has picked up pocket aces.
Okay.
Makes it just over 11,000. Richard Young not afraid to see another flop. Sam Trickett with position decides this one is worth peeping at. So 3 players with Mercier the massive favourite. We'll see the flop. Interesting. Queen for Trickett and Young. Trickett with the backdoor flush opportunities, which actually puts him in better shape than Richard Young. But Mercier still very much with his hands around the throat of this particular pot. And he increases his stranglehold with a bet of just over $15,000. Not sure what Young was calling to hit, but he's decided to get out of the way. Trickett showing a bit more metal. But he won't like that king. Mind you, nor will Jason Mercier particularly. And he slows right down. Can Trickett take this away from the aces? A lot of people rate Sam Trickett as the best player of Hold'em in the world at the moment. Certainly has the results to stand that up. Mercier, undeterred, makes the call. There's a 9, so Trickett did not improve. Can he bet enough to get Mercier off this? Remember that 80,000 in the middle is real money.
Now let's just hold on for a second, because there are lots of people even, who somehow think that this is a bluff by Sam Trickett, but we say nay, it is not a bluff. It is a value bet.
Are you getting a little upset there?
I don't know. You
think
can't handle the truth, Internet.
Well, here is the truth. The reason people might think this is a bluff is because Sam has the worst hand and he's betting. Yeah. So a good result for him would be Jason folding. That's not really the definition of a bluff. A bluff is the intent to get your opponent to fold, and Sam intends for Jason to call with a worse hand, clearly.
Right. If we think about the turn, right? Sam bets 15,000 into a pot of 64,000, even though the Aussie Millions producers and whatever screwed that
They got it
whole thing
wrong,
up.
but at least we fixed it for you.
Right, because as we know, you cannot trust Australia. Right? Everyone knows that.
No, that's him, not me. I don't say that.
Yeah, okay, I say that.
I love Australians. They're great.
I like Australia. I've been to Sydney. It's great. All right. So Sam bets 15 into 64, which we believe is absolutely intended to get jacks and tens to call. It's like, I know this is a bad board for you, but Jason, you cannot fold for this price. I know it.
Maybe even down to 8s some of the time.
Yeah, absolutely. 8s, 9s, things like that. So then the river comes, Jason checks, and Sam's thinking, well, this guy's got jacks and tens, and he called before. Let's get a little more value. And he bets this amount, 43.5.
Yeah, clearly his intention is to get a call from jacks, 10s, maybe 8s sometimes. Obviously not 9s anymore.
Nines would be a problem.
Yeah, that would be a big problem. But to be clear, Sam does not think Jason is going to fold aces or ace queen
No.
or something like that, meaning this cannot be a bluff.
This line would expect to be called by better queens and by aces for sure.
He just doesn't expect Jason has those very often, and he thinks the times that Jason does, Jason's going to call, and Sam's going to be like, oops.
It takes a hero to lay down aces sometimes. But you can see that Mercier is at least considering that possibility. And when there's a six-figure sum at stake, you can scarcely blame him. It's hard to see someone looking much unhappier with pocket aces. Aces and kings with a queen kicker, but he is so wary of stepping into the bear trap of the phantom king he imagines is sitting in front of Sam Trickett. And he folds. So that is a quite brilliant coup by Sam Trickett, showing just what caliber he has.
Sam Trickett is a really high caliber player, as the man says, but what he does here is not illustrating that the same way that we as the audience might think.
For sure. I mean, Jason's sitting there, and there's some problems with this board and the story that's being told. Not in a good way when you have two aces, right? First of all, that 9 comes, and that 9 completes the straight the way Renee Zellweger completed Jerry Maguire. I mean, that thing is like, bam, it comes in, and now, like, what's left? What can you beat?
Right.
Because the bluff that you were calling to beat on the turn, which is really just Jack 10, although we can beat some queens too, as we can see. Now that bluff is no longer a bluff. Now it's just a super strong straight.
Right. We don't think Sam Trickett was calling the flop with nothing, with something like 6-7 suited to try to make a play later. So
No.
when he calls the flop and then bets the turn, he usually either has a king, a queen, or Jack 10. And, you know, the kings are really bad for Jason. Jason knows that.
Yeah.
The queens are rare for Sam to bet twice, especially a queen as low as Sam has. So that leaves Jack 10 and kings as the most usual hands that Sam's going to bet for value here on the river.
Absolutely. And if you look at Sam's expression right here, he's a little bit upset about this.
Yeah.
Because we think he's thinking, I bet too much and I just folded out jacks. I'm such a moron.
Right.
Like I folded out the hand that's 1 pip essentially worse than mine because I bet too much. I should have bet 25K on the river. Then I would have been able to have him show me the money.
You really are into
We're doing Jerry Maguire
late
this week.
90s movies, huh? That's what we're doing. Okay, so yes, we think that Sam may immediately realize after Jason folds that he made a bit of a mistake by the sizing on the river and maybe even betting it all on the river because it's really hard to get called by a worse hand. But that mistake somehow accidentally led him to make Jason Mercier think that Sam had a much bigger hand than he did.
Absolutely. And it worked out incredibly well. The accidental bluff gets through, but it was not the intention. The intention was to get called by, we're pretty sure, a hand that's slightly worse, jacks or tens. The sizing made it very hard to do. Or maybe he just, reached up, got in touch with his Quan and got that fold.
What's a Quan?
That's from Jerry Maguire.
Oh, that's also from Jerry Maguire? Okay, great. I hope we're sponsored by Jerry Maguire right
Maybe
now.
one day. Cameron Crowe, we're looking at you.
Anyway, it boils down to, in Jason's mind, how many hands is Sam really playing this way that I am now beating? I could have easily been beat on the turn because Sam has a ton of kings in his range. King, Jack, King, Queen, sometimes even Ace, King. He could play like this. King, 9. He has so many kings. He has a few queens that he might bet on the turn, but he's usually not going to bet those on the river as well. And as we already said, Jack 10 got there.
Right, and really, what queens does he have that he's betting for value? We have 2 aces. That knocks out some of the ace queens. He might 3-bet ace queen pre-flop sometimes also. So it's just hard to put him on ace queen. Is he really betting other queens for value? Jason
Apparently.
decides probably not, but turns out he is.
Sam Trickett made maybe a bit of a mistake, but it worked out beautifully.
In 30 seconds, we're going to look at our favorite comments from last week's video.
If you guys want to see another big Jason Mercier river decision, check out The Coronation of Jason Mercier by clicking up there.
Yeah, great hand. Pretty recent, but Jason is killing it. He's destroying it at the World Series. So
We got to
probably
do a lot of
again.
Jason hands,
That's
man.
what's going to
That's how
happen.
it is.
Yeah. Also, check out our podcast and make sure you subscribe.
Last week we had a hand between 2 legends of the game. Well, a maniac and a legend as we titled it, and
Yeah.
Jonathan's going to tell you about it.
Absolutely, I am. Thank you very much,
welcome.
Grant. It was a cash game from Poker After Dark. Tom Dwan opened the button with 2 threes. Doyle Brunson 3-bet from the small blind with 10-9 suited, and Tom called. They both had like a whole bunch of blinds, so like 100 and some odd
Doyle had
blinds.
96,000 as the effective stack. The blinds were 200, 400.
Apparently Grant's going to help me tell
Yeah.
you about it. That's fine. Doyle flopped the heck out of it. It was 9-9-5, and he just went bet, getting all in on the river. And Tom just went call, and lost a humongous
He was a
pot.
hero, a maniac hero.
He was a dead hero by the end. All right, let's hear what the people had to say. Mike Can't Read says, good call, Durr. Doyle pretty value light here when you consider all the slow plays he's going to use with his value range. Basically just losing to the random times Doyle 3-bets with 9x and whatever pocket pairs make full houses.
This is a good point, and the thing I like about it the most is that it's not results oriented. He's
Yeah.
saying it's a good call, and we kind of agree that it's at least an okay call by
Yeah.
Durr. And what he's referring to is that Doyle often will flat with big pairs pre-flop. He was known, especially in this era in big cash games, to be doing that.
Also, he's mentioning, I think this is an interesting point which we didn't talk about in the video at all, that some of the time Doyle's going to slow play trip 9s, maybe on the turn of the river, maybe even on the flop, once in a while, just because he's so concerned that Tom's not going to have anything. He's sort of crushing the board, especially on the turn, actually.
Right.
So I think it's kind of a neat point. I
good
agree.
point.
All right. Another one we have is Derek Diaz.
All right.
He says, is raising the turn ever a good idea? He means from Tom's point of view.
Okay.
Dwan's hand isn't strong enough to call a re-raise, so a turn raise might help to define Dolly's range. Raising the turn might allow him to get away before the river shove, because it's unlikely Doyle shoves with just an overpair. It seems like Durr was content to call and evaluate the river and never considered a raise.
In a short answer, no. One of the main reasons being the stack sizes that we're working with here. Doyle bets 22,000 on the river. What's Dwan going to do on the turn? Excuse me. What's Dwan going to do? Raise to 44,000 and then fold to a shove for another like 35,000 or something? That doesn't seem like a very good idea.
Yeah.
Also, you might end up folding against flush draws, stuff like that. That's also a bad thing. It seems clearly based on stack sizes and really just board texture. It's a spot for a hero or a fold.
Yeah, Dwan should be, I was going to call him Ron.
Ron?
But we can call him Ron.
What if his name was Ron Dwan?
I wish it was. Or
That would
Dwan Ron would be cool. Too.
Dwan, well, somebody name your kid that, please.
Okay. Dwan should really be raising on the turn with very strong value and weaker hands. Even though pocket threes is weak, weaker hands in that because pocket threes can show down, and the board was such that Doyle was polarized. So a raise isn't going to do a whole lot for him. He's just going to fold out hands he's beating anyway most of the time and get called or moved in on by hands that he's getting crushed by.
The value is that he does get to protect against the ace highs that might pair up on the river.
Yes.
That's all fine and good, but really he can't make any other raise other than moving in and be kind of a reasonable raise, so it seems like a bad spot.
Agreed.